Hey, Vaughn.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I know you're a little warm.
Yeah, a little one, but I know, I can't complain. Like with all the
No,
weather
you cannot.
I
You
have going
cannot.
on, I'm not going to say a word.
Okay. Well, I will welcome everyone to But First Football. This is our 14th episode, so we are moving right along. And I am Kim Beal, the self proclaimed First Lady of football fandom and fashion. And I am here with my good friend Vaughn Parker, who is our football phenom, and he is the knower of all things and who guides us through football. And Vaughn, it has started.
Yes.
It has started, and I'm
Finally.
gonna just start by sharing. I have zero love at all for the New England Patriots, like
Yeah.
not even one like sliver. But I watched that game last night, and they shared a quote. They shared something that Jerod Mayo, the new coach, said to the team, and
Okay.
I liked it. So this is what he said. This is preseason, so he says this game doesn't count, but it doesn't mean it doesn't matter.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah. Well, especially to the individual. I mean, it matters as a team because you're trying to establish your team identity. Guys are trying to make the squad. Guys are trying to
Yeah.
get better. The veterans who hopefully they don't feel complacent and that hey, I've made it. Hopefully they're trying to improve their games. And what was I weak on last season? I'm working on that to improve it. This is the time to do that.
Yeah. So we thought that this week's football fundamentals, which is always our first segment,
Mm-hmm.
football fundamentals, they're two of our favorite F words. We will just dissect a little bit about what we saw in the game, and you can share with us if you kind of caught anything that we'd been talking about. I'm curious to get your take on the new kickoff. It's the first time I've really seen it. So let's go into the fundamentals and talk preseason week one, game
Sure.
one.
You know, I was so surprised at how many emotions I had about the season starting, in particular the preseason. Because in the preseason, everyone makes the same paycheck, right? You're not getting paid your salary that you signed your contract for.
Oh,
So
I
the
didn't know that.
oh yeah, 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 oh yeah.
Oh.
So everyone's kind of on a more equal footing. I mean, some things are obviously understood, but everyone's out there. Like I just said, you're either trying to get better, you're trying to make the team, and so it just really took me back to 1994 in La Jolla at training camp. And to be quite honest, there were times where in between practices, you get that little bit of time, you can hopefully get some sleep, get some food in you, and I would be at my locker thinking to myself, I'll just figure out something else to do. Like this is not for me, right? And
What?
yeah, absolutely, because I wasn't having the same level of success that I had in college. My body hurt. I was tired. I didn't, I wasn't. You're still a rookie, so there's definitely a hierarchy, right, to any team dynamic. And so, and I'm kind of a shy initially until I get to know people, and so I'm not, it wasn't easy for me to make friends instantly. And Gary and I had been around for a few months, but still, everything was just coming down on me at times. I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, I'll go back to Buffalo. I'll figure something out.
So
And
wait, wow,
thankfully,
this is your like 30th, like that was 30 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
I just did the math. What can I
Right.
say?
And so it just transported me to that time where you gotta trust the coaching. You have to trust yourself. Hey, I'm here for a reason versus someone else. And what happened is you listen to the coach. He tells you, hey, here's where you struggle. Here's how I can help you. And you have a little bit of success. And that success turns into, oh man, well, I made it on that play. Well, I can reproduce it and do it again. And then you string a couple good plays together, and it's like, oh no, okay, I think I can do this, right? And so you just have to have that confidence in yourself. And the other thing is, I remember about this time of year because like the starters typically won't play the whole game. They'll play
Right.
a couple few series, and it depends on the team. Maybe there's a team who has a say for my position, the starting offensive line, they're going to play longer because we've got two guys competing for the starting quarterback job. We don't want one guy to have the starting line and the second guy to have the backups. We want them to play under the similar conditions. It's not going to be exactly the same, but similar conditions. So we're going to leave the offensive line out there longer. Well, at some point, the young guys are going to get in. Maybe a six, and I can remember Hudson Houck. He went nuts on a 6th-round draft pick because he wasn't necessarily taking things as serious. He's like, look, you are a 6th-round draft pick in the NFL. There's certain expectations that come with that. If the starter goes down, you could be in. Like, I need you to take this seriously. And that always stuck with me because no matter where you are, you don't know what the management's plans are for you. You don't know what coaches' plans are for you. So if you're serious about it and you really want to make this team, you got to put in the effort. You got to put in the time. And so I just was watching that. There's so many little micro stories other than just, hey, New England's playing a game tonight. Like, there's so many stories that we are unaware of. Like, and that's why I thought about myself, because is there a guy out here who's maybe struggling with his confidence a little bit? It's a very different game from college to the pros. It speeds up. And one of the things about this time of year that used to always drive me nuts when I got older, everything prior to this does not matter. Now, in the moment, hey, we need you here for the offseason conditioning. Hey, we need you here for the offseason practices. And they're telling you, oh, it's the most important thing in the world. But as soon as that phase of the offseason's over, none of that matters. This is the only thing that used to drive me nuts, right? But, guys.
Vaughn, this is so interesting to me because it does make a lot of sense that there are a lot of players out there who probably feel exactly like you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as fans, we probably don't factor that in. We're just thinking, oh, they're in the NFL, they're confident, they're cocky, they're this, they're that, they're gonna, why didn't they catch that ball or whatever?
Right.
I think this brings a little bit of a different perspective for me anyway to preseason.
Well, especially when you're making that transition from college to the pros, where on its surface it seems very similar, but it is a different game in terms of the complexity of the offenses, complexity of the defenses. Like I said, the speed, the strength, and the talk after the game last night, of course, the big talk was about Drake May, and Joe Milton and Zrappy, about their playing time. And it just made me think about, well, again, like, you don't know what the coaches' reasons are for playing one guy a lot versus a little. But as well, especially coming from the outside, like the analysts, they have their ideas and plans about what's happening. But I'm sure Joe Milton, who's a fantastic, like we talked yesterday, we saw one play in particular where, he's always been a great athlete and he displayed that last night. Well, sometimes things change in the moment and you want to get a guy a few extra reps to see, hey, well, okay, like I said, maybe the other team left their ones in a little bit longer. Maybe you want to see him against ones to see, hey, we've seen it in practice, but now can we see it on the field? So it's just, like there's a million stories, right? Like there's a million stories, and I think it's very cool part. So I hope people tuned in beyond the starters being in, because there's a lot of great football being played. And like the effort level of these young guys trying to make this team, and I think about also, because sometimes analysts can be dismissive, even the ones who have played, right? And I just think about how good that 54th guy who's going to get cut and not make the team, how good of a football player he is. And so he deserves like some respect because he's out there putting his life and body on the line to make this team. And so I don't know. I was dealing with a lot watching. I thought it was just very cool time.
You were dealing with a lot. I didn't even realize that. I'm just texting you in caps, Milton. Like, you mentioned the commentators. So what I think is interesting about preseason is it's typically the local commentators. So here in Tampa, our preseason is always Rondé Barber and Chris Myers.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rondé doesn't do anything other than the preseason here.
Right.
And that was, I think, the same last night watching the New England broadcast with the McCurdy. Are they twins or just brothers? I'm not even sure.
Twins, yes.
Twins, okay.
Yes.
And they played at the same time there, right?
Yes.
but it's funny to watch. And then they had, was it Brian Hoyer in a booth with some other guy? Like it was like they had so many people commentating that game. But you never saw a shot of Carolina. I never saw a picture of Dave Canales. I did,
Right,
like, they only showed New
right.
England. So I do think that's kind of fun in the preseason because it's really the one time you really get that the local, like, this is our team
Perspective,
and we don't
yes.
care what the other guys are doing.
Right. Well, if you see now, like say the national championship game on ESPN, they'll have 4 different telecasts, and you can actually choose. Oh, I want the like if it's Alabama, well, who's been forever. I want the Alabama guys because I want to feel good about what's going on, right?
Right. Well, you realize that always my dream job had been to be like a color commentator for NFL football,
Uh-huh.
but of course, many reasons why I could not be that, but one being the fact that I could not possibly ever be neutral.
Right, right.
And that's just one reason.
And that's why we're fans, right? We very rarely can be neutral.
So I did, we were talking about Milton and I thought
Mhm.
he played really, really well. And it was just nice to see like that mobility and, but also some great throws. But the line seemed to hold up with him as well. I mean, what did you think about the O-line play?
Yeah, but I'm always everything I said about why it matters. It doesn't count, but it does matter. But you still just have to in preseason. It's just sometimes difficult because you don't know exactly. Well, is that the starting defensive front that's in that they're
Right.
going against that they're
Yeah.
playing? But look, you want success no matter who's in you, and that's where the coach is coming from. We want to be successful, establish our identity, regardless of if we have our 4th string versus their 1st string, we want to dominate their 1st string, right? Um, but it's just you like what you see, but you actually want to tamper your expectations. Just saying, hey, who's in and something. So what people might not know also is that teams, especially during the preseason, especially I'm not sure if they scrimmaged for a few days before they played last night, but
Mm,
especially in those situations, they'll go into a game and you'll have a lot of contact. The coaches will with each other saying, hey, kind of get a feel for how long they're going to play their starters versus
right.
you.
Yeah.
It won't exactly match up because you'll have a plan that you're just trying to get a feel, and you'll have some agreements in terms of, hey, we're going to play this pretty vanilla. This is the first game. No too exotic blitzes, but again, it's kind of more of a gentleman's agreement. And there's plenty of times where you'll get a play like, hey, like what's going on, right? Like, but you got to be prepared to block it. Like your coaches, they almost enjoy that thing because they want to see, hey, how are we going to respond, right, to something. And so it's you can't count on it, but there's
Right.
a bit of there's some communication about, hey, how are we going to play this game?
Well, I did hear that today. When I was out on my walk, I was listening to NFL Live, and they were talking about the Bears playing the Bills this weekend, and how
Mm-hmm.
they will be playing starters at least at the beginning. So I did think that was kind of interesting. I'm like, how does that agreement come to be? Because obviously, if someone's going to play their starters for the first quarter, you don't want to throw your newbies out there and say good
Right,
luck.
right, exactly. Yeah, so
Did you did you I'm sorry to interrupt, but again, with my disdain that I feel for New England, and I'm no big fan of the Panthers either because they're in my division. However, I did feel like there was a little bit of a different sideline vibe in New England, which I appreciated. It
mhm.
seemed like it was maybe a little looser. I mean, Belichick was just, but I know that won't sound good on podcast people. I just made a gagging noise and that was not attractive and I apologize. But did you catch that? Did you notice that or not?
I didn't necessarily, but look, coaches, teams are going to be reflections of their coaches, and so I don't know Jerod Mayo personally. So perhaps though, his personality is just a little bit more relaxed than Bill. He's from that coaching tree, and he's been there. He played his whole career there. He's coached his whole career, so he's got Bill's style in his DNA somewhere, but
Right.
perhaps he's just a little bit more relaxed. And, the team over these last months of the offseason, they're going to reflect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get a feel for I thought Zappy was not fantastic, and so they're carrying 4 quarterbacks right now.
Yeah.
So they're obviously Jacoby Brissett is their starter, Drake May is their future.
Yeah.
Zappy is kind of on the fence, and Milton, wasn't he in the combine this year? Didn't we watch him and we thought he was good in the combine? Or
I
am I
believe
making
so.
that
Yeah.
up?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think he was just at Tennessee. So,
One of those guys will be what? Because you carry 2 quarterbacks, you carry 3, but one is on the practice squad. Or can you carry 3?
well, one is designated that he only plays in case of emergency, right?
Okay.
So,
So they still have 1 too many.
most teams, some teams even only carry 2, but most teams will carry 3. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it breaks down, right? And that's one thing I meant to mention. When you're one of these guys who doesn't necessarily get a ton of reps, you got to make every rep count, right? You got to take advantage of those opportunities, because as you get closer to the season, you're not going to get them, right? The starters are going to start playing a little bit longer in the preseason. Practice reps the starters are going to start taking more of those those team practice reps. So when you get those opportunities, you got to make them count.
Yeah. What did you think of the new kickoff? It seemed kind of like nothing really happened.
I think it takes some of the mystery out of it, but I understand why they're doing it. At least I'm believing the reason is the safety, because there are, even though they've taken the wedge out of it, there's still, you're running down 40 yards, and there's still some big collisions that I think they're trying to avoid. But in terms of some of the rules, and I know the big one everyone keeps pointing out is that 2009, 2010 Super Bowl, the Saints come out onside kick at the halftime, you take that out of it. So maybe but the NFL is really good about tweaking rules very quickly, right? If something's not working, they'll tweak it, and excuse me, and it'll be changed if it doesn't. So I'm not crazy about it, because it still feels a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
But I understand the reasoning for it, and so let's see how long it remains the way it is.
Right. And what about that illegal hip drop tackle now? I did it bother you? Did you notice any thing being tweaked because of that? I couldn't really tell.
I don't. It's just tackle to tackle. It's hard to tell if it comes up, but if those type of injuries are down, where guys are getting those lower extreme leg injuries are down, then yeah, probably. When you show it in slow motion, obviously you can see, the guy's pulling on his hips. He's got his legs locked up, and then yeah, of course, it looks like a lot of bad things could possibly happen. And look, I'm an offensive player, and I feel funny saying, but I feel for defensive players, because there's such a it feels like they have such a small margin for error in terms of how they tackle someone.
Sure.
Of course, the quarterbacks, but even the guys out in the field, it's difficult, but it's all in the name of safety. And the NFL is very good about that, about making rule changes. You can feel how you want to feel about them, but we're going to make the rule changes to keep our players healthy, so that we can get all the scoring we want to keep the fans engaged. And so
I think I did hear there was one that maybe was a questionable hip drop tackle, and they said, well, he'll know if he gets a FedEx package on Tuesday. So I remembered you sharing that with us. So that happens even in preseason? So how does that work?
Oh, yeah.
So if you're making all the same money, and by the way, what is that, just like an average salary, or is there a specific salary for preseason?
It's part of the collective bargaining agreement, and I'm not exactly familiar with what the new scale is, but and of course, most things go by year, right? The number of years. So there's a little bit of variation, but in terms of one guy making his big salary versus another guy making his minimum salary, preseason, we're all pretty much equal.
So let's say this guy does get a FedEx package. What's that fine going to look like in preseason? What if he can't afford it?
Oh, it's not prorated. You're playing for free for the next few weeks is what happened.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, they don't prorate the fines for you.
Do you think these young kids know that?
The way the NFL does it, they do a really good job, especially with the drafted guys. They try to expose them to so much. I'm sure at some point it's come up, hey, fines are fines. Like, so try not to get one.
Yeah, try not to get one. You don't want to see FedEx showing up at the locker room.
Right.
I wonder, like, if the FedEx guy, like, I have this vision in my head, like, he's like tiptoeing in, leaving these FedEx envelopes because he knows what they are, and he's like, I gotta get out. You know what? That would be a good commercial. I'm just saying. The FedEx guy goes running, and this guy comes out and tackles him.
Yeah. One of the few times you are not looking for mail at your locker. Oh, man.
Is that where you get fan mail? Like, let's just say someone wrote you a fan letter. Do you get those? Do they get delivered to your locker? Yeah, like, how does that work?
It probably depends on the organization, but we had cubby holes with our names where kind of fan letters would go. But that FedEx is sitting right there at your locker. No doubt that you received it.
Someone's got to sign for it.
Yeah.
Well, I think so. Tonight there's a couple of games. Atlanta's playing tonight. I know Houston's playing tonight. I'm interested to see both of those teams. I can't remember who they're playing, but and then I think there's one other. And then we play tomorrow at 7 p.m. in Cincinnati. So I'm very, very excited about that. Can't wait. I'm going to cook and I'm going to wear stuff. Even though it's preseason. And then there's one game on Sunday at 1. And I think that is Denver possibly. But lots of football.
Giants Detroit went last night.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Was blocked out in my market for whatever reason. Why would that even be blocked out here? I don't know.
Yeah.
But oh, look at my shirt. Look at my new shirt. Sorry, can't football buy. Don't ask me.
Don't have time.
All right, well, let's move into the frenzy, shall we?
Sure.
Football frenzy. One of our other favorite F words, frenzy. So I shared with you the other day. I found this so funny and cute that Antonio Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders, had the coaches go through a similar fitness program to the players. And we got a good chuckle out of that because he's got Rob Ryan on staff, who is a very large man and not in a good way. Like, and apparently he was shirtless with his big old belly. But he says he lost 8 pounds. And then they have Marvin Lewis, who's 65 years old, and he has 2 replacement hips, 2 replacement knees, and Joe Philbin, same thing. So they were on the bike, but apparently the players really got a big kick out of it. And I think some of the coaches maybe weren't super happy about it, but it's interesting, right?
I think it was great for morale. I think you're right. The players probably did love it. And the coaches, again, look, Antonio Pierce probably suggested it. They weren't happy, but in the name of morale of the team and bringing us all together, I'm sure they just sucked it up and went along. But it made me think about some of my coaching staffs. We had one year, call it 2002, where it felt like, I'm not saying this is the fact, but it felt to me like the coaches were in the training room as much as any of us were. Like, they were always getting treated for something. And I'm trying to think if any of them played, because maybe, it was just old NFL injuries, or if it was just like...
Maybe they were just getting a massage.
Yeah, well, that too, right? But we had like an older staff, and they're always in the training room getting something worked on.
Well, I think that it's kind of one of those things, and it made me think about my career in retail. And one of the things that I felt really badly about, like the past couple of years, the last few years I was there, was I really didn't know how to ring on a register. So
Mhm.
like if they would have a problem and they needed help with a register, I could not help them because even
Right.
though I went through register training, I didn't do it. Like how frequently does the GM ring on a register? That's
Right.
never. But because our staffing was such that sometimes I would be there alone or with just one other manager. And so when I was thinking about these coaches having to demonstrate that they were able to be fit and run some of these drills, I kind of thought the same thing. I'm like, wow, I should have done more register practicing. That might have made my team feel a little bit better and more secure if I was the manager on duty. Does that
Well,
make sense though? You know what I mean?
Kim, misery loves company, right?
But then I
Yeah.
guess a couple of the coaches they said really tried like on the 40, I guess it was, and like came up lame.
Oh, yeah.
That's not
See,
good
there you
either.
go. There you go.
um so there was that. And then I have to say last night during the broadcast, I really loved the NFL commercials about registering to vote.
Hmm.
I liked that. I thought that was
Hmm.
super cool.
Yeah. I
In
mean, you
fact,
gotta.
Dave Canales did one in Spanish.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah. I didn't even know he spoke Spanish.
Well, that was my next statement. Yeah, I didn't know he spoke Spanish.
I guess Canales, I guess that is a Spanish last name. But then,
Yeah.
then speaking of Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers, did you hear that they flew back to Carolina and, horrible storm, our wonderful storm that we had here last week, Tropical Storm Debbie had moved over
Hmm.
and they had, just torrential rains in North Carolina. Well, they flew back last night and apparently their plane skidded on the runway,
Oh, really?
off the runway, and then got stuck in the mud.
Oh, wow.
So not only did they lose, they had a terrifying return home.
Oh, man.
Everything's fine and they're all okay. So
Okay.
I
Well,
can
that's
chuckle
good.
now, but
Yeah.
yeah, crazy, right?
Yes. Very, very much so. The only two issues I've ever had were we had to come. We were coming in for a landing here in San Diego, and as you come right over the city and you drop down, and we had to. All of a sudden, we started accelerating again, and we had to make another pass. And then the other time, one of the George Pernicano, at least that's how it got back to me. Our one of our minority owners supposedly accidentally we had to land in North Island in Coronado. We couldn't
Oh,
go
right.
into Lindbergh for some reason, so we landed in North Island. And he accidentally hit one of the slides somehow, or at least that's the story I got, and so that's what I believed for all these years. And for those who don't know, George. Well, first you smelled George before you saw him because he was always smoking a cigar, and he looked just like the Monopoly Man. He had the handlebar mustache,
A little
a white.
what do you call those
He didn't. He
things?
didn't have the monocle, but the white handlebar mustache with the cigars.
Did you guys fly commercial or did they charter? Like, I'm assuming they charter all
Yeah,
NFL flights, and
we
there's
flew
only a
with Delta.
few that have their own plane, right?
I think the Patriots do. Dallas, I'm guessing. I'm not positive that they do, but yeah, we flew Delta my whole time. So
I always think about the Bucks coming home because in, the beginning of the season here, we are in the midst of our stormy
yeah,
season and flying into Tampa sometimes, not to scare you because you're coming in September,
yeah,
but it can be a little bit of a ride.
yeah.
Now, we need to go back to Dallas for a moment because did you see what Jerry Jones said about CeeDee Lamb?
About not being so concerned.
Yeah, he said, I have no sense of urgency.
Yeah,
I was in Nobu for 2 hours last night or something. What is that all about? Like, how that must really make CeeDee Lamb mad.
I think at a certain point, Jerry just feels like I'm not going to be bullied by anyone. I'm the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and no one's going to make me do what I don't want to do before I want to do it, despite all the evidence to the contrary that he just needs to get this stuff done. He says he's all in, and I know people kind of pick that statement apart, what exactly that means.
Yeah.
But CeeDee Lamb has demonstrated that he's one of the top receivers in the league, and
Yes.
it's just he's the next guy up. We talked about that a few weeks ago. He's the next guy up. Here's what that means dollar wise. If you're not going to do it, I don't know what, because the more you wait, just the higher the price goes.
Yeah.
And and,
And,
and and I think sometimes Jerry, because of the shine you get when you play for Dallas, one, he expects guys to take a bit of a discount because in his mind, you make so much money off the field being a star Dallas Cowboy that it kind of evens it out. But also, I just think he because he has, like, Dallas is such a bright star in the world sports that I think Jerry just sometimes is like, look, like, you play for Dallas, like, I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. It's just costing him. It's costing him. And because, like I said, it's hard in these negotiations for people not to get in their feelings a little bit because Dallas is coming to CD with, here's the reasons why you aren't as good as you think you are, why we shouldn't pay you what you want. And sometimes those feelings linger. So does CD really care if he's in Dallas and he gets the money, or is he willing to go somewhere else and get the
he'd
money?
probably love to go someplace that has a better shot at the playoffs because let's face it, Dallas has not been any good in the postseason.
And they
But
probably feel a little worse off than they have been the last few years. They've gone 12-5 a couple few years in a row, and are they as good as they've been? I mean, obviously the season will bear it out, but they need CeeDee Lamb.
yeah, well, I think it makes Jerry Jones look terrible, but that's, then you got the whole Brandon Ayuk, who very well could end up in Pittsburgh. I
Yes,
mean, there's still a few guys out there that have not come to agreement. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
yes. Well, again, going back to Dallas, I think the quarterback situation is so interesting. He's got a huge cap hit next year. Um, And as I said, look, he hasn't had probably the playoff success that anyone would want, or anyone maybe expects for a guy you're going to pay $50 million a year, and I get that. However, when you look at it, is he a top 10 quarterback? Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, what's your next best alternative? Do you bring in a rookie? Do you bring in someone who's not as good? And you can put, if by saving that money, sure, you can put a team around him, but then there's risk everywhere. So I think my thing would be, if you got him, keep him, because it's just, you know what to expect. You know his like, you can self scout. You know his deficiencies. You know what he's good at, and you can still build a team around that. And so again, I don't know why waiting seems to be Jerry's MO lately, but
Well,
it
and
is
you
what it
you
is.
ha- you have to think that there would be a lot of teams that would love to have Dak Prescott, and you also have
Definitely.
to wonder if he wouldn't be better off at another team where there was less pressure. As you say, being a cowboy
Yeah.
comes with a lot of pressure. As we
Yeah.
know, being a cowboy cheerleader comes with a lot of
Right.
pressure,
Yeah.
but no money.
Yes.
So I feel like, yeah, Dak could have success elsewhere. Not that, I mean, there's a few teams that I could think of that would probably jump at the chance to get him.
I look.
But
I'm not a Dak apologist either. I'm not one of those people. I look. He needs to have more success, and it's not necessarily that if you pay a guy this is the expectation. No, but he's held up as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and so you'd like to see more playoff success. That's the goal, right? And
right,
so,
yep,
but at the same time, I'm not so down on him that I can't visually, objectively, I should say, realize that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And look, we can quibble about elite versus not, good versus great. He's a good quarterback that you can win with, and everyone can't say that. And so while you have him, look, give them the new contract, lessen that cap hit so you can make other moves.
Well, you also have to wonder about the coaching. I mean, that the coaching in Dallas just seems to be. I would hate to be a head coach in Dallas because really, you got Jerry Jones breathing down your
Yep.
neck and
Yeah.
really coaching the team. So I don't know. I've never really understood the obsession with the Cowboys, but for all the perks that go with it, it's probably not the easiest place to play.
Well, for all the other fandoms who complain, and look, I complain, I can't stand them, but they do move the needle when they're on TV. The needle is moved. People watch when
So
people
weird.
the debate shows when people debate the Cowboys who haven't won in 30 years. The people watch. The needle gets moved. I don't get it either. I do
And
not.
we're talking about them now.
I know.
Well, I
Oh
wanted to
man.
move on to a couple of things. First of all, starting off with family/fashion, because your daughter Maddie, who works for Aritzia,
Yes.
that's a store that my daughter happens to really like, and she ordered some things from Aritzia the other day, and it came, and I opened the box and I was so excited. I texted you. I'm like, oh my God, Aritzia does not waste resources. The products came in a recycled paper envelope in a box with no plastic,
Mm-hmm.
no anything. It just made me feel good. And I wanted Maddie to know that I personally appreciate her company's dedication to less waste.
Yes,
So
and she
thank you. Thank
appreciates
you, Maddie.
it. She
I
did
know she had
appreciate
everything to do with it,
it.
but she very well might have.
Well, I'll tell you what, she is completely into sustainable fashion. This is a couple years ago, and I told her that I was going to order a shirt from Sheen.
Yeah, Sheen. Yeah.
Dad, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm
Good,
like, what are
Maddie.
you talking about? I'm like, I just need a cheap shirt, like literally a disposable shirt. She's like, that's the problem. And so she took me through the whole fast fashion and disposable fashion. I was like, okay, all right, I
Yeah.
get it.
I knew I loved that, Maddie. And then I have some philanthropy stuff to share. We spell philanthropy on this podcast with an F,
Yes.
just so it works with our theme. But we have back to school on Monday here in Tampa. And with the Black Childhood Development Institute, we did a school supply drive. And I sent y'all a picture of my living room full of school supplies. Our goal was just 50 backpacks. We got 130.
Nice.
We also were collecting polo shirts that, around here they wear certain colors as uniforms with khaki bottoms. And we collected, I think it was 110 of those. And then boxes of school supplies. So we way overachieved our goal. And just a big shout out and thank you to my former team at Neiman Marcus, because I reached out to them and I said, hey, remember how we used to do this every year? You guys still want to do it? And they did. And boy, did I have a huge box from them. And so what we did that was a little bit different, a lot of these back to school drives, you have to go somewhere. So like the Bucks will do it at Raymond James Stadium, or, you have to actually get somewhere. But a lot of people who are in need of this stuff, it's not easy for them to do.
Right.
So we loaded up, my daughter and I, Elizabeth, used her muscles. And believe me, it was not easy. We were dripping sweat, loaded up my car with everything. I could not see a thing out of this car. But we took it to this very impoverished apartment complex that it was just, just so sad and in such need of so many things. But honestly, too, I don't think, and I go to a lot of places. I deliver Meals on Wheels, as you know. I'm in a lot of places. I have never been into an apartment complex that had armed security.
Oh, okay.
So this one does. And in fact, when I came in, the armed security guard at the gate said, oh, you're here with the backpacks. Can you save one for me? I'm like, yes, absolutely, yes. Which I did. But they had us set up at what they referred to as the splash pad. So I don't know about you, but when I think about a splash pad, I think, oh, cute, fun colors, all these different things that water comes out
Yeah.
of, and it's a fun environment for kids, right?
Right.
This was a slab of concrete with one, I don't even know, it looked like a shower, like a
Okay.
shower head. And that
Okay.
was the splash pad.
Okay.
So, we were set up there and it was blazing hot. It was 96 degrees. And
Oh,
that's not even the feel like temperature with the
the humidity.
humidity.
Yeah.
And we stood out there for 2 hours, but it was really great. And the kids and the families were so grateful and thankful and fun. And I had bought those, all those little rubber bracelets that have little words on them, like, I am amazing, I am the best. Like, I ordered all
Right.
these positive affirmations. So I was giving all those out, and it was really nice. It was a great thing. Felt really good. But also just really makes you feel for these families they're just trying to hang on. And there's so much expected that kids provide for themselves at school, and these schools are certainly not in good condition. And
Yeah, but you know what? That something like that makes them feel just a little bit better, because I remember that was such a big deal for me, getting my school supplies, right? My book bag and my pencils and my notebooks. And so that makes, and when you go to school and you don't have that, like,
yeah,
you feel a certain type of way about yourself. And so
sure.
trust me, this helps their self-esteem a ton, because they go to school and they have their backpack just like everyone else. And so, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was nice, and it was cute because I took a picture of this one little girl, and she, they love to see like, I gave my phone to some kids and they were taking pictures. I'm like, where's my phone? And then I looked at my camera roll. I'm like, oh my god. But I took this one picture, and she, of course, has to look at it. And she's like, can I send this to my mom? And I said, sure. And then I realized, oh my God, her mom's going to think, where's my daughter? Whose number is this? And sure enough, I get a phone call, and I don't recognize the number, but I thought, I better answer this. And it was
Right.
her mom. And I'm like, I know, I thought about that. Everything's okay. She should be coming into your door any minute. But
Right.
it was cute. It was really cute. And then tomorrow I go to the Freddie Solomon Boys and Girls Club, and they have their back to school event. But I'm just going to pass out my inspirational bracelets and play with the kids, which is my favorite thing to do. So those are the things that have been happening here. What about you?
Well, I was just
Anything
going to say,
going on?
it seems like so early, like mid-August. I know for a fact we didn't go back to school until maybe that first week in September. And I know it's different areas, different regions of the country, schools different, but man, so do your kids, do they get out, call it early May, or?
No, they get out right at Memorial Day. It is the weirdest thing. And when we first moved here, we did not realize how early school started here.
Mhm.
Shame on me, but I had a very short window of moving here, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, wait, school starts mid-August?
Right.
And we scrambled, and it luckily worked out. But they start very, very early, and I don't understand the reason. That it's certainly not for temperature, because it's god awful out
Yeah.
there right now.
Yeah.
But my nephew, the football player, tonight's his first home game. They started last
Oh,
week.
wow.
But those Atlanta schools, they get a fall break. They get a week of vacation at the end of September, I believe.
Oh,
But the kids here don't get that. So I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, but it's a crappy one.
well, I went to a Catholic high school, so I was always felt like we got days off that the public schools didn't get off, right?
Yeah.
Um, so always felt like we were getting something off. But I'll tell you, the thing out here that I wasn't used to, that my girls had going to school, that everyone does, is ski week in February,
Oh,
right? I'm like, ski week? What is ski week? Oh, I'm like, Yeah, okay. Like I don't ski. But yeah, that was so that it's different things for different reasons. Yeah, it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess in February they get off for the state fair.
Yeah,
What the heck? That's kind of silly.
we
In February, living in Tucson, Arizona, where you just were, I was in grade school in Tucson, Arizona, and we got rodeo vacation because the Tucson rodeo was in February.
okay.
So you're
Well,
right. Every geographical area has its little thing, I guess, in February.
now I don't know about your school, but UCLA was on quarters, so we didn't start. Fall quarter didn't start till sometimes like October, the
Oh
first week
yeah.
of October. Obviously, I was already there for football. We played 3 or 4 games before school had even started,
That's so
and so
crazy.
yeah, right. And so I'm always fascinated because to this day I still don't know how semesters work. I'm like,
Yeah.
for how long was it? Like, how's it work?
Yeah. It is all a little confusing.
But at UCLA, of course, we didn't get out of school until mid June. Then, right?
Right.
Everyone's done in May, and we're still, oh, geez, we still
Yeah.
got
Early
another
May
month to go.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's about it for this week. We got some games to watch tonight and this weekend.
Yes.
So next week we'll have even more to discuss. Very, very exciting, and hopefully a Bucks win for me. And I guess if not, it's preseason, but I'm still gonna hope for one. So we'll keep our eyes open and
Yeah.
have good stuff to look for.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Absolutely.
Vaughn, I hope you stay cool. And I
I'm
hope I do
trying.
too. And I hope, Ashton, you do too.
And no more rain. No more rain for you guys. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, there's something brewing out there in those tropics. We'll see. Hopefully,
Yeah.
not coming this way.
Yeah.
But all right. Well,
Okay.
thanks, Vaughn. It was great. And everybody, thank you for listening or watching. But first, football. Bye now.
Bye, Kim.
Bye.